welcome everyone to today's monthly webinar. Today's webinar is in partnership with NATHO and IMS People Possible. And I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Holly Bass, and I'm the Executive Director for NATHO. I've been in the healthcare staffing industry for just about 25 years. Most of that time has been spent on the agency side in leadership roles. As president of company, running recruitment teams, operations, and then over the last 18 months, I have been working directly with NATHO. I'm also here and excited to introduce Eric and James. Eric Dorsey is the Assistant Vice President over at IMS People Possible in the sales and key accounts area. I'm going to read a quick bio on Eric because he has quite an impressive background. Eric is an accomplished healthcare professional with over 15 years of experience as a registered nurse and a deep specialization in clinical and business development. His expertise spans healthcare staffing, operational efficiency, and strategic growth, but also having successfully built and scaling a healthcare staffing agency before transitioning into leadership roles where he focused on innovative workforce solutions. His dual background in clinical practice and business management uniquely equips him to understand the needs of healthcare providers and align strategic solutions that enhance service delivery. He is dedicated to leveraging his clinical insights and business acumen to drive impactful partnerships and grow initiatives. So, very excited to have Eric here today. And then also we have James Heel, who is our senior manager over at IMS People Possible. He also is in the sales and key accounts area. I also get to work with James on our conference planning committee. James Heel is a seasoned professional with over 23 years of extensive experience across various facets of the staffing industry, including sales, marketing, and recruitment, and account management. He has worked closely with healthcare facilities, understanding the profound impact placing providers in communities. His experience extends to collaborating with offshore recruitment teams, optimizing the recruiting process, and enhancing overall business efficiencies for staffing agencies. He is driven to provide solutions that lower costs and also speed up hiring schedules and increase healthcare accessibility. So, James, also an outstanding background, and you guys have a lot to offer with your experience, and we have a very, very cool presentation planned today. So I'm going to kick us off and then I'll eventually turn it over to the experts. But we wanted to start off by asking everybody a question. And that question is, do you feel like the world is upside down right now? And we ask that question and think sometimes we all might feel that way because technology is moving so fast. And then our ability to emotionally and socially and ethically process it is also it's a little irrational right now, and it's very human, and it's a human reaction for us to have to adjust to having a massive shift in how society works under a lot of the new innovation, AI, and of course automation that's going on. And here are a few things that we think kind of drive all of us to feel a little quote unquote upside down. The pace feels unnatural. We're having to figure out now, like what we thought was human is really now like, oh gosh, AI can write, AI can diagnose, AI can actually hold conversations. So we're trying to figure all of that out and where we fit in, how we hire, what skills we need, and rules and ethics, and what's real and what's fake, and what can we trust. So that's why AI is also just kind of making us all feel a little bit upside down. But at the same time, we're optimistic, we're excited, and we're also still learning it and trying to understand it. So this slide is what we call the hype cycle for AI. And the easiest way to explain it is that this chart shows where AI trends are overhyped and which ones are maturing and which ones are actually delivering value today. Eric, I think yesterday you called this a roller coaster. It does kind of look like that, right? And that is kind of sometimes how we feel with automation and AI. But essentially, we're not going to walk you through this whole slide or the curve, but we are going to touch on the bottom and talk a little bit about the cycles. The innovation trigger cycle on the hype cycle for AI is really where brand new ideas have come in and new ideas are starting to emerge. Lots of buzz, but we haven't quite adopted yet. Then you move over to the peak of inflated expectations. And that is now where everybody is talking about what's going on, but the expectations aren't quite realistic yet. Then you go through the trough of disillusionment. And that is when reality sets in. The tech is a little bit harder maybe than we thought and a little bit harder to implement. Then we progress to the slope of enlightenment. Organizations finally start figuring out practical and sustainable uses for AI. And then last but not least, the plateau of productivity, which is where we all want to get to, right? That's where tech becomes stable. That's where it becomes widely adopted. And now it's genuinely useful for our organizations and our teams. So on today's slides and today's presentation, we're going to talk about the digital evolution in recruitment. And that's really all about aligning people, process, and platforms. I'm going to go ahead also and quickly go through the agenda, and then I'm going to turn it over to James. Today's agenda, on the next slide, we are going to wait for that to come up for everybody. All right, we're going to go through a quick AI adoption survey. We're also going to quickly go through the addressable market for recruitment automation. We're going to go through the evolution of recruitment. We're actually even going to go down memory lane 25, 30 years ago, what recruitment looked like, the journey, the part around the people, process, and platforms, and that alignment and how they come together. We're going to do a quick automation fact check. Then we're going to go through and look at automation in action, and then we'll also conclude and be available for a Q&A session. So no matter what, we all know that AI adoption is already here. It is across every domain. So James, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly. Appreciate that. Yeah, so if we could just look at a couple of the questions that we've got here, would love to get some input from y'all that are on the call, because obviously AI adoption is already here, and we're using it throughout organizations, but just curious about some of the areas that you all are seeing as far as adoption within your company. So the first one is, do you currently use any AI tool in your day-to-day work? And if you don't mind, just popping in an answer there. Perfect. And then our second question is, how are you utilizing AI tools in your daily recruitment workflow today? And if we can pop that second question up there. There we go. Perfect. And we've got another question here for you. Which AI tools do you use the most often? And if we can pop that up, that survey question, number 3.
Yep, this one doesn't like me. I'm gonna work on it just for a second.
No worries. Perfect. There we go. And question number 4, in what ways has AI helped you? I know sometimes AI has some frustrations, but let's think about the positive right now. What are some ways that AI has helped you? Perfect. Yep, we already got that one. Awesome. All right, we'll compile those here and we'll get right back to that. So based on comprehensive survey we did internally with over 3,000 of our folks in India and out in the Philippines, just really looking at that AI adoption within our organization. So we have tools that we have built. We have tools that we have purchased. There's obviously free tools out on the internet that our resources use throughout the organization. This isn't just from a recruiting front. This is across the org, from marketing, finance, back office support, production. So just want to look at some of the results that we had there from that survey. If we can go to that next slide. So we definitely see a shift in AI. We've got 72% of those 3,000 folks who are already engaged in AI at some point, throughout their day. Some use it a lot more than others. We do have folks that about 16% that really don't utilize much of it. But when you think about, 72% of an organization of 3,000, that's a lot of folks that have found ways to allow AI to be able to help them. And the one thing that would like to highlight within here is these are the same 3,000 folks that didn't lose their job because of AI. I know that's a big concern with a lot of people. They've not lost their job. They've found ways to make their jobs more effective. They've found ways to be more productive in their jobs. They found ways to come across better. Having AI help them maybe with drawing up an email or doing a LinkedIn post. Just positive ways to be able to improve their day-to-day work. And then nearly, 3/4 of them, obviously, with the behavioral shift. We looked at that one. And so when you look at what are they using it for, 32% of them from communication standpoint. So when I talk about emails, I talk about LinkedIn posts, those type of things. We're using it to be able to communicate better. 23% for research. How do we, find ways to be able to adopt that from a research perspective? How do we go find candidates? How do we find better tools to use? Things like that. So, definitely these high frequency business activities to be able to draw up, to come to conclusions that help us. And then you can see down there below the chart, the screening and things like that we're utilizing as well. Next slide. So 70% are typically using just generative AI, so the basic like ChatGPT or similar things to that. But we do have some that are using more of those core work platforms, using design content, automation tools, things like that. And then also built-in tools that are built into your CRMs, built into your different processes within your organization. So definitely see a lot of utilization on that basic level for sure within our group. And obviously there's going to be some negative with AI, but as you see, from this survey of over 3,000 folks, 96% see a positive impact in their day-to-day work because of AI being able to help them. A couple folks just haven't, really seen that value in that, and that's understandable. But typically, from an organizational standpoint, if you can get an adoption of 96%, that's pretty high when you think about CRMs and other tools that you maybe have brought into your organizations. To get 96% of the people to see a positive impact, that's a very high adoption rate. So good stuff to see. And hopefully you're seeing that in your organizations as well. And so please keep this in mind. Usage isn't just limited to one function, right? As we look at these surveys, as we look at the results from that, multiple areas of AI throughout our organizations. And, when we say adoption is invisible, a lot of times you don't even realize that you're using AI, but it's in the background helping you. Sometimes it's a very specific tool that you're utilizing, but it's really become natural. Maybe not so much for me. I'm a little bit older. I know my granddaughter they adopted it like nothing. She's 13 and AI is all a part of their lives. They talk about it in school. They utilize it on their phones. It's all there, and they don't even realize it because it's just natural for them. They're growing up in this age, and it removes that friction. So it's really helping us to be able to connect the dots. And it's not, at least not to to this point, we're not seeing it really remove roles. Now, if you ask some of the experts on this that are a lot smarter than me around AI, there are folks that say, potentially there are going to be, role removals. But for right now, this is really about just removing friction and trying to help be more productive. And so AI only works where automation is possible. And it's possible, based off of that automation has a rules-based system. And then it's where judgment is required and people lead, right? The correct framework is the one where people, process, and platform evolve together. And, one of the examples that I can give you, and while I didn't watch much of the actual Super Bowl, I did watch a lot of the commercials. And Microsoft's commercial was pretty interesting to me. They were using AI in their tool to be able to help draft players, and so they use this AI tool to be able to go in there. But without the human interaction into that tool, none of that would have been possible. Without the processes that those coaches had in place within their laptops, they wouldn't have been able to get that all set up and have those players in there. And so it is a combination. You can't just expect things to get done without that human interaction. And so it is, three pronged to be able to get to those results. But I thought, as we were preparing for this, we've been preparing for a while now on this webinar. And when I saw that commercial, I'm like, that's a great example of using AI. And you've got to be able to, utilize it well within your orgs. Eric, do you want to talk about addressable market recruitment automations?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I'd love to get those results from the survey that we posted too. Lindsay, if you could potentially share those in just a second. So with the addressable market growth, the recruitment automation market's projected to grow by $254 billion by 2030. We're moving from the emerging phase into an era where early adopters are starting to significantly outpace the rest of the market in terms of speed and scale. So early adopters, 87% of firms are using AI in recruitment today. As far as emerging adopters, 40% of tasks show potential automation adoption. And then future growth, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, 42% are planning to adopt generative AI soon. Before we get to the future, though, I think we should talk about what the past has looked like. And Holly, I think you were going to speak to this.
Yeah, happy to. We were talking when we were preparing for the webinar, we were thinking like, gosh, everything's changing so fast. But when we really thought about it a little bit more, change has been happening all around us. For an old timer like myself, who's been in the industry for 25 years and started off as a recruiter, we were adopting and adapting for the last 25 years, way before AI.
Exactly.
Technology was coming in, and it felt maybe it was a little bit of a slower pace, but maybe this will kind of trigger some memories for all of you guys. But everything was manual 25 years ago. Everything was on paper. We used to mail our pay stubs to our travelers and our traveling clinicians. So, they never ended up at the right place because they were on assignment, so they never could see them. We had to FedEx and UPS overnight our new hire packets for credentialing and onboarding. And then we hoped that they received it and then that they would fax everything back to us. Then finally, when fax got to be fax to email, we thought that was the coolest technology change ever. Then I remember I had a manila folder on my desk for every single candidate I talked to. Nobody has that anymore, obviously. I don't even know making file cabinets anymore. No social media, no apps, no Teams, no Zoom. I think when we did have a conference call, we all huddled around in a conference room with a Polycom in the middle of the table, and you hope that you were heard and could hear everybody else. And when I started, I didn't even have a cell phone. I made all my calls at the office, in office. Nobody was remote. Websites were really junky. They're antiquated. Jobs weren't on there. Jobs weren't pay ranges and pay packages weren't on there. Again, just there was no automation and everything was manual through the whole workflow process. So you kind of take a walk down memory lane, and we really have had a lot of change happen over the years. And that's just a few things that we mentioned. We actually, I think we sat there for about an hour and talked about some of the changes that we've seen and how far along that we've come. But I think James or Eric, I'll turn it back over to you to kind of keep us going in the future now that we've talked about the past a little bit.
And I will do my best. I'm no Elon Musk here, but I'll share what predictions are coming. So, where recruitment automation spend exists today. Currently, most automation spend is focused on that job advertising and sourcing. So the top of the funnel, we are spending heavily on visibility, but we're often neglecting the end-to-end workflows. And so everybody knows this slide and the next slide are sourced from information provided by SIA, Staffing Industry Analysts. Go back to that last slide here real quick. So while enthusiasm right now for AI is extremely high, uncertainty around organizational and vendor readiness is real. Waiting, however, is not a strategy that we can take as staffing providers. The competitive gap between firms experimenting with AI and those that are extracting measurable value, it's widening. You really need to find ways now that you can implement some of this technology if you want to keep pace with others that are within your industry. So the question is, it's not whether to move forward, it's how do you do so with financial discipline and rigor. We can go to that next slide. So this slide is showing where recruitment manual spend currently exists. So 170 billion is spent on recruitment activity that can be automated or optimized when manual tasks and existing automation are combined. So I think this is the most critical slide that you all can share with your leadership within your companies. High manual spend still exists in areas that are prime for automation. So when tied directly to measurable outcomes, such as reduced onboarding times, lower error rates, faster placement cycles, and improved margin capture, AI becomes a performance driver rather than overhead. So AI isn't a magic bullet. Most organizations and vendors are still on that learning curve. We talked about that hype cycle in the beginning, that roller coaster, learning when a AI system should be implemented and what is that best case? What is the best use for that AI system? So what separates successful adopters from the rest isn't fortune, it's rigor and evaluation and clarity of expectations. So now a question for all of you before we move on. And this is one that I think all of us think about a lot. Where do you think we will be in 30 years with AI? And I want you to type your answers in the chat, please. And we'll read some of those answers. So where do you think we will be in 30 years with AI? Of course, Elon Musk has a number of predictions, some very closely associated with Hollywood movies that are out there, like I, Robot, and of course, one of my favorites growing up, The Terminator. When I think of AI, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger with red eyes coming to wipe out the human race, and hopefully that's not the case. Anyone typed anything in the chat yet? Where do you think AI will be used within the staffing industry? James, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something to add there?
I was just going to say people are being shy right now. Don't be shy.
Yeah. On the previous slide Holly shared, we looked back at that digital evolution in recruitment. The 30-year horizon looks less, I think, like a sci-fi war movie, and more like a massive opportunity for productivity within our companies. The foundation that you decide to build today will determine if your agency can survive and thrive through the next 3 decades of change. So it's okay that you're being shy, not putting answers in. I do think,
I think
we
it's a
might
hard.
not be downloading kung fu directly into our brains like the Matrix just yet. But I think with recruitment automation and the market expecting to grow that 254 billion by 2030, we are definitely moving toward a super powered version of ourselves. So in 30 years, are we living in the Hollywood sci-fi movie, or have we just mastered what our tech stack looks like moving forward?
And I know for me, this is a tough question. I mean, I've had time to prepare and try and understand. But even, back in 2001, when I got into this industry, I couldn't have imagined using my phone as a way to text people. Like I didn't even know what the word text was. Text was something on your paper, right? And now recruiters today that get into this industry will not get into the industry if you don't have a good texting platform. We didn't even know what that was when I was, getting started. So maybe some of it is just hard to even comprehend, especially when you think about, that list that Holly had brought up. What is it going to look like in 30 years? I saw one comment, 10x the recruiter's productivity. From a CFO's perspective, they're going, absolutely, that would be amazing, having recruiters doing 10x. Um, One person, the world may not exist if we're on the path that we're on. We don't know. We don't know what that is going to look like for sure. Recruiting auto personalized outreach for sure. I'm sure a lot of that will be done, not from a very generic, broad spectrum, but probably a lot more personalized. So definitely
I
some good
like
comments in there.
I like the one answer here too, that responding to the needs of customers and prospects will be lightning fast. I think out of everything, we know that time will be saved by the use of AI.
For sure.
We will be able to be more efficient.
Yep.
Cassidy responded, AI predicts facility needs weeks or months before openings happen. That'd be great as a provider, right? As a staffing provider, knowing what's coming down the road and being able to forecast those things. Absolutely.
Some great comments. Thank you all very much.
Yep. On to that next slide for me. So operationalizing AI. I think now we need to look at how we operationalize this across these three key areas: compliance, recruitment, and automation. So automating removes effort. I just talked about how it'll speed things up, make it lightning fast, and help us to become more efficient. So taking those manual, repetitive tasks off of your plate. That second, people and platforms create structure. So building a framework where humans stay and continue to stay in that driver's seat. And AI, of course, boosts intelligence, not replacing you or your brain, but giving it a massive upgrade. Okay. So beyond theory into capability. Um, you know, IMS, we support over 200, I think 240 companies globally. Many of those are within the staffing space. Many of those are within the healthcare staffing space. So now, we'll kind of give you a brief glimpse into how we operationalize AI across, some key areas within the support of the staffing industry, where theory becomes reality for us. So the first area is the compliance and verification automation of these functions. So in healthcare, compliance, of course, is non-negotiable. I was remembering back to when I owned a staffing agency and also had filing cabinets full of files. And all the different credentials that needed to be collected for healthcare personnel. You all are probably smiling now and can understand what that's like, files of 20 to 30 different credentials that needs to be collected. But compliance is non-negotiable in healthcare. Automating PIN checks, credential verification against registries, and ensuring that's done with accuracy and speed is significantly important, right? I mean, you want to be the first to present that candidate to the client so that they can get started and get to work. So we've seen cases where this reduces that verification cycle by up to 80% or more. Next slide.
I'll take this one. Intelligence tools allow us to automate market research and sourcing. So instead of a person manually searching for leads, we can use scraping tools and data tools to gather that information 95% faster. It's just able to do it quicker than a human is able to get in there and do that. And it significantly reduces our research cost. If you think about the time that it takes a recruiter to go into each and every database, each and every website to find candidates, it is very time consuming. And these, type of tools are going to be able to look into those sources and get us leads a lot quicker to be able to fill those needs so that hospitals and clinics get the people that they need quicker.
Yeah, I think, slide disappeared on me. Yeah, I think real-time analytics and performance dashboards provide, obviously complete visibility into how your company is working, is being productive, and that leads to 40% better gap visibility. So when you can see the gaps in real time, you end up with 50% fewer unfilled shifts because you can deploy, resources proactively.
For sure.
And these slides are showing some of the tools that we use, which we're happy to share on another call in the future if you want to connect.
So one of the other things that we're using are AI chatbots. I know those can be a little frustrating sometimes when you call customer service, but internally we're using them to allow a new hire, instead of waiting for HR to answer a policy question, that chatbot provides 24/7 access. We don't have to have somebody answering these. They've got the data, and it's led to 60% faster onboarding of our resources and a much better employee understanding of internal standards, and a lot less wondering what. They understand because they're able to get these answers right away and not have to wait on someone. It's been a great tool for onboarding for us.
Yep. I think we skipped a slide.
I'm not sure if it got deleted in there. It looks like it got deleted. It's operational automation. So looking at CV formatting, used to take about 40 minutes to do a CV. Now it's 2 minutes or less. 95% of our time is being saved, by utilizing tools such as this. And that goes straight back to that recruiter or that credentialing agent to be able to spend time building relationships and closing placements.
All right, thanks, James. All right, so what we'd like for you to do now is we want to encourage everybody to get their phones out and scan and download this QR code. I think we talked a lot about today, and to me today, one of the biggest takeaways for today is if you've started, awesome, but then you're probably thinking, what's next? And if you haven't started, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm behind and I need to get started. So no matter where you are in your journey of automation, the team is here to help. The IMS People Possible team is here to assist you. Take a minute, download this code, and I think you'll find that it gives you a lot of information and some information regarding next steps. And then on the next slide, we like to point out that we actually do have an expert hotline live in here to talk to you right now. And we'd like to encourage you guys to ask some questions to the team.
The word expert is used very loosely.
Well, the answer, yeah, you have access right now, answers in real time. I mean, like Eric said, they are working with over 240 companies in some way, shape, or form. Probably want to learn what they're doing, how it could help you. So make sure we're capitalizing on the time today.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that a little, Holly, I think, a key takeaway that you can get from this presentation is that others in your industry are doing this. That they are adopting technology, AI technology, and it's going to put them ahead of some that aren't adopting that. So be aware that AI is here, and its capabilities will be growing as we move forward.
Well, again, I think people are being shy in the chat, and that's okay. I think one of our slides has our contact information. Feel free, to reach out. Outside of this, if you have questions, happy to share, how we're utilizing some of those tools. If some of those jumped out at you and said, we absolutely need to start doing this, please let Eric or myself know. Happy to help you understand how we can help you with your organization, be able to, improve those people processes and your AI tools.
Hey, I've got something, if you don't mind. Stephen Parker here with Jackson Healthcare.
Yeah.
So, we're getting into a bunch of different tools and getting pitched a bunch of different stuff. I think what we're finding is there's a lot of companies that are doing very similar things. And so you're seeing that you're trying this and you're testing this, and there's just a lot of overlap. And so it's about, hey, which tool do we want to tackle this specific thing? For example, automation of outreach to caregivers, right? There's like a million tools that do the same thing.
Yes.
Do you have a list of your top vendors? Like for credentialing, this is where we see the highest win success, most vetted out, furthest down the process of build out for credentialing. And for your automation for outreach, we have this vendor that we see as the highest up on the list and most vetted out. Anything like that you could share?
So personally, I don't think Eric or I would have that unless you do, Eric. But from our operations team, we can definitely get with them and see. I know a lot of our tools have been internally built that we're using, but we do have some that our clients are using, and that they have us using our resources, utilizing to be able to improve their productivity. I'm happy to get with those and get with our operations team and let you know for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That leads to another question that I had actually. That's really I wanted to ask. Out of the 200 or so companies that you're working with, what percentage would you say are building internally versus outsourcing their AI component?
Great question. I don't think we've ever surveyed, but internally we could talk and figure out which companies are giving us tools, to utilize. We could start there for sure. But yeah, definitely a great thing to look at, with those organizations to see how they're doing that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I'm going to post an article here in the chat. It's an article shared by SIA, I think Monday this week. Before you invest in AI, ask these 10 questions. So I think this can be a good guide for those that are starting to evaluate what different AI looks like, and what are some things that I need to consider as I move forward. Thank you for the question, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, any other questions before we wrap things up? Okay. Well, I recognize a lot of names and see some faces that are very familiar. And if you happen to have my email address kind of preloaded into your email, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to make an introduction to Eric and James and connect you guys. That'd be easy and great. I'm happy to help. So just really on behalf of the entire IMS People Possible team, Eric and James, we want to thank you for attending our webinar today. We really appreciate your participation. And I think we all, like we said, we walked away with some great takeaways, and we learned that we don't need to be scared of AI or automation because it's already everywhere. So let's adapt and adopt. And Eric or James, do you want to close this out with any final words?
Yeah, I would say just if you have time to download that checklist, I think that will help be able to go through and look at some of those different areas of your organization to where maybe AI would help. And we'll definitely get back if anyone else wants information such as Stephen's question. Let us know. I'm happy to find out what we can. Obviously, some companies we're if we have an NDA and we're not able to disclose that, we won't be able to do that. But we do use a lot of tools internally that'd be happy to share, those tools as well. So,
Well said, James. Thank you all for attending.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
Bye-bye.
bye.
Thank you.